And after my postdoc, I transitioned into a managerial role at Blockchain ABC. So right now I manage research projects, education programs, and industry partnerships for Blockchain ABC. And then in the meantime, I'm also engaged with a few blockchain startups and serving as advisors for some blockchain projects. And I'm also on the Web3 committee of the Canadian Blockchain Consortium. So I'm very happy to moderate this session today with three wonderful panelists, Dr. David Wang, and Professor ATI Mashitan, and also Lee Ackerman. So maybe first, let us please welcome our panelists, and I will hand it over to our panelists to introduce themselves. And maybe let's start with Atty.
Hi, everyone. Well, thank you very much for this invitation to all the organizers. It's been a great event. My name is Atty Mashitan. I'm a Canada Research Chair as well as Associate Professor of Information Technology Management at Toronto Metropolitan University, formerly Ryerson University. I'm calling from Toronto, Ontario. I wish I could be in Vancouver, but I'm glad that we can meet and have this discussion today. I look forward to it.
Thank you, Atty. And next, maybe we'll have David.
Hi. Good morning, everyone. Actually, it's very glad to see you guys here. I'm a joint professor in the ECE department at UBC, and then I also co-founded this blockchain UBC master and a PhD graduate program. I designed the cross curriculum for the graduate pathway program at UBC for blockchain, and also I'm teaching the foundation of blockchain and the software engineering of blockchain at UBC now. I'm also the founder of Verilog Solutions, and then we are a Web3 security company, and then right now the total TVL for our clients is already more than $10 billion US. So very glad to be here, and then thank you.
Yeah, thank you, David. And next we have Lee.
Thank you. I'm thankful to be here. Appreciate the invitation. Lee Ackerman. I am the chair of the Web3 committee with the Canadian Blockchain Consortium. I'm also on the executive committee for Learning City and a board of directors with something called Elixir, Enhanced Learning in XR. And in my day job, I'm a distinguished digital learning architect at Tech System Global Services. And which hopefully comes through is a big passion for learning and the intersection with technology and helping people to thrive, embrace, and grow in a Web3 world.
Thank you, Lee. So as you can hear, all of our panelists are deeply embedded in the Canadian blockchain ecosystem. And so the first question is going to be, how would you like to categorize the current Canadian blockchain ecosystem? And who wants to start first?
I can go first.
Sure, thanks.
So, in my intro, saying I come at it from a bit of a learning or advocacy or a community point of view. And in leading the Web3 committee with the Canadian Blockchain Consortium, it gives me a chance to get a bit of an insight from that grassroots point of view. And so with the Blockchain Consortium, and it's funny, we abbreviate it to CBC, and it's like, no, the other CBC. So with the CBC, we have 9 committees and an executive committee supporting them, and on each of them staffed by volunteers. So we've probably 100 to 150 people volunteering their time from everything from mining, Web3, looking at fintech, insurance, banking, ESG, inclusion. And each of those committees is planning events, is engaging with the community, advocating for blockchain from those perspectives. We host panels, we put on events, conferences. We just did a blockchain summit in October in Calgary. I think I left that part out. I'm in frigid Calgary. It's like -25 at the moment. So I wish I was in Vancouver as well. We have 60 industry partners. And a thing that both excites me and challenges me is there's a lot of diversity. I talk about Web3, we talk about inclusion. We also have a group focused on mining. And I'm like, I don't know how I feel about mining. But there's folks very passionate and, making a contribution and trying to grow those aspects. And I guess the other thing I'll highlight in there is beyond having that diversity of everything from folks working on DAOs to working with currency exchanges to looking at the metaverse or Web3 and gaming, we're engaging with governments. And recently we did a trade delegation down to Texas to learn more about their regulatory reception to blockchain, to Bitcoin, and how they've been trying to encourage growth of their industries. We've written reports, we've had sponsorship and grants given to help drive that. And I guess if I come back to it, the really amazing thing is it's all volunteer driven. And so, when we start talking about an ecosystem, how amazing is it that you've got a large group of folks, which will hopefully be larger and continues to grow, driving the ecosystem. And I guess the last thing I'll highlight is I'm in Calgary. A lot of the consortium started in Calgary. We have representation pretty much from every province now. We have a group of ambassadors that support all of the committees, where we're trying to make sure that those regional views are being brought in and really trying to be a pan-Canadian institution.
Thank you, Lee. And I definitely echo your observation that the Canadian blockchain ecosystem is very diverse. So in Vancouver, as you know, we have a very strong entertainment industry. So there are a lot of NFT companies and DeFi companies. And as you know, Def Labs started from here, and as well as the Flow blockchain. But if you go to a blockchain conference or meetup in Alberta, you will hear a lot of conversations about mining and energy. And I think that makes sense because, Alberta is a province that is strongly focused on the energy sector. Yeah, so I don't know much about the east part of Canada, especially, the Atlantic provinces. And so do you have any observations of that part of Canada in terms of blockchain ecosystem?
Little insights. It's getting to be quite the flight to get out there, but talking to a few folks and trying to find folks. And it's interesting, just like a session today where it's connected to a post-secondary. There are folks radiating, connecting out from post-secondaries in the Maritimes, connecting with some individuals in terms of their support for some of the community building that goes along with the technology. Those are the folks that I've bumped into so far. I suspect there's more. I hear a little more and a little more connection out of Montreal with folks trying to build different DAOs, different communities, leveraging NFTs and really trying to think of how to build on blockchain. But so far I'm still working on my connections and insights into the Maritimes.
Yeah. Thank you. Interesting. And Atty is based in Toronto, right? And she probably knows very well about the blockchain space in Toronto and in Ontario as well. So Atty, what's your observation?
So I'd like to speak, yes, as a Torontonian, but also as the chair of the steering committee of Blockchain Technology Symposium, which is an annual pan-Canadian symposium that we've been doing. This year would be the 6th year. So I'd like to talk about that and another question that we discussed. But through that lens, then I would describe the ecosystem as follows. I agree with everything that Lee mentioned, and I'd just like to add and make some nods to what he mentioned, but also add a little bit. So we have academics. I'm sure we're going to cover all the great things UBC is doing with blockchain at UBC, because it's really the full stack from certificates to degrees to research. It has the entire full suite of what you want from an academic institution, and also the industry collaborations. And I'm sure you're going to speak to that. But we have an analogous one, a very similar one here in Toronto, not my institution, it's actually York University. So Blockchain Hub or Blockchain Lab, they are also a full stack. So they have research component, they have certification, they have education components to what they do as well. And then you have other universities, from coast to coast to coast, that have professors who have some either new interest or renewed interest in blockchain, distributed ledger technologies, cryptocurrencies, NFT. So these are professors who were working on cryptography before, like myself, before a decade ago, right? Concordia University has a very strong presence in the space. Jeremy Clark, one of my collaborators, and very famous name in the first or second paper that was written on academically on Bitcoin, for instance. So he's at Concordia, so there's a very strong way for academic research coming out of that. University of Waterloo historically has done great in cybersecurity and networking, several related adjacent topics to blockchain technology. And we see these professors who were not working on blockchain technology 10 years ago are now contributing a lot to. So that it's great that we're piggybacking on the strength that we already had in several universities. Another university is Calgary. Again, I know many professors like Ray Safavinayani, who was a keynote in this event, who's a cryptographer, but now is working on intersections of cryptography and network security and blockchain, generally speaking. So on academic front, we have that. But I'm also interested in not just the technology of it, the multidisciplinary aspect of the collaboration that is happening among academics. So we always talk about adoption, and adoption is a human aspect, right? So it's you need social scientists or information system scholars to talk about adoption and do adoption studies. So I'm seeing collaboration among the technology researchers who know exactly what this technology is capable of, with scholars who can study the human side of it. So I'm very interested in that type of collaboration, and it's great to see that there's a lot of that going on. Then coming back to Blockchain Technology Symposium, we have industry. And Lee mentioned how diverse the industry really is. This is great to see. So we have as big as DLT Labs, representing one of the most successful POCs in this space, to startups of all colors and all size and all pillars of all sectors, all from real estate to supply chain to NFT, everything. So it's very diverse, it's very colorful. So that's great to see that. Then we have policymakers or institutions that are in a unique position to inform policy. So Canadian Blockchain Consortium is an example. DIAC, also part of this event, I believe Joni was also a keynote. From an identity perspective, this is really an institution to watch, in my opinion. Canadian Blockchain Supply Chain Association is another one representing the supply chain, which is a huge application use case if you look at blockchain as a whole. Blockchain Research Institute, Toronto based, but with a lot of depth and breadth in terms of bringing people of diverse background together. They even have international presence. So a lot of presence in terms of associations, non-for-profits as well. So as a whole, pan-Canadian, we are full stack, and that's great to see. And I'd like to come back to some of these also in the questions we're going to discuss next.
Thank you so much. It was a very comprehensive overview of the Canadian blockchain ecosystem. And so next, David, how would you categorize the Canadian blockchain ecosystem?
Yes, thank you. I think that I will talk about the current status of the Canadian blockchain ecosystem from the following perspective. One is the teaching and research, and the other one is the second one is from the entrepreneurship, and the third one is the venture capitals. So first, I'm the professor at UBC, then I said that I have co-developed the entire course curriculum for UBC graduate students. Every year I have about 100 students and then learning with me about the smart contract development, and then also the foundations of the pillars of the blockchain in the technical perspective. I'm from the technical background. And then I'm also the recipient of the NSERC Discovery Grant for the blockchain research. And every year I also review the NSERC Discovery applications. So from this perspective, I see Canada is really leading this kind of the blockchain research, and then like UBC, and I think that we have launched this blockchain UBC graduate pathway program since 2019. And then a lot of my students are working in, for example, Covalent, Dapper Lab, and Layer Zero, those top or the unicorn Web3 project you mentioned, Vancouver. And then, well, for the entrepreneurship part, besides those companies, we also have some very good projects and then launching in Canada for the Web3 or serving the Web3. And then a lot of companies and the founders reached me because I'm also the mentor at the entrepreneurship at UBC. And then I am reached from the local companies or the pan-Canada companies about how to apply the blockchain technology and to boost their business or to improve their current the business logics. So it is from this side, I think the Canada is also a good country in the world. And then in terms of how to utilize the blockchain technology for the traditional services. Well, for the venture capitals, I think it is somehow not very good so far, because most of the venture capitals for the Web3, they invest in tokens. And then they also use the USDT, USDC, and to invest those early stage projects. While for the regulation perspective, this is something we do need to discuss. And then I also have a meeting with the BC Security and talk with some people there about the regulation issue about the Web3 startups and the Web3 investments for BC and in pan-Canada. And most of the current venture capitals who are very active, actually, they were doing the exchanges or centralized exchange, even though the FTX has some impact to the market. But most of those investors, they still came from the traditional centralized exchange, the track or field. In terms of this investment, I think the Canadians venture is not so active to invest those Web3 early projects. This is the current status of the Canadian Web3 or blockchain ecosystem.
Thank you. And I definitely have same feeling as David on a lot of the issues that he just mentioned. And I think what he just said actually naturally connects with the next question that I have on my list, which is what areas within the ecosystem do you see the most and least energy? Or in other words, what are the strengths and weaknesses of the ecosystem? Yeah, so I think David mentioned a few of the strengths and a few of the weaknesses. So Lee and Atty, like, what are your thoughts on this?
I can go first.
Sure.
So I think in terms of strength, we really have the resources. In terms of subject matter experts and volunteerism that Lee brought
yes.
up. I think the initiative that a lot of our enthusiasts have goes a long way. But even those who are doing it as part of their day job, they're doing a great job as well. And we have the numbers and quality, so both quantity and quality. And when I say resources, I really mean the human resources. We may not necessarily be the best country or the country on the map in terms of funding, which is also a resource necessary. But in terms of human resources, we're doing great. But as it's not unique with blockchain technology, we always lose talent to other jurisdictions who have either attract our talent, right? We see this as academics, we see this, and there are studies that startup spin-offs are successful, but then they go to Switzerland, they go to Israel, they go to San Francisco because our taxation system is just not that attractive to these, right? So now, however, wherever we land on the political spectrum, these are just facts that have been, the evidence shows that a lot of great talent, the idea from inception was a Canadian idea, but when it got to be commercialized, we lost it. So I don't think blockchain would be any different. I think blockchain, so we will have this weakness as a nation, that we're going to lose talent because of this, unless we, fix some of the fundamental things or make it attractive, make Canada attractive for not only for this talent to remain, but also talent from outside to join us, which is a much, in terms of scope, is out of scope of this discussion, obviously, but this is something that we have to deal with. If we don't want to have the same, thing happen to us as in other topics. Another thing, again, is not unique to so my first point was not unique to blockchain, but unique to Canada, kind of. This next book is not unique to Canada, it's unique to blockchain. So in blockchain, we're building the plane as we're flying it. Right. And let me pause and explain what I mean by that. A lot of emerging technology, like, Internet of Things, no longer considered to be emerging, in my opinion, but it's being widespread now. But let's say 10 years ago, when we were talking about it, and it was really emerging technology in its true meaning, true sense, many of the components and many of the technical components or network components, they had already been proposed and studied, maybe in isolation, in academia, in research, even in industry, but on the research side of R&D side of things. Before things were standardized, then things were standardized. So what then was ready for people to adopt kind of had stood the test of time. Now, even I mentioned IoT, maybe that wasn't a great example because it's also a very problematic scenario. But think about, it's not that standardized. We have lots of issues in IoT, so it wasn't a great example. But what I'm trying to say is that we had time. The users had time. The commercialization had time for things, for emerging thoughts, concepts, ideas to stand the test of time. But blockchain technology is really novel. Although several components, especially from a cryptographic perspective, they existed for decades. And we have standards to go by. But when you put it all together as a whole, as a system, it's still very novel. And we have end users or companies who are so excited to commercialize it, to adopt it, but some of the critical components are still being figured out by everybody even on the research side, right? So that's an issue, and it's not unique to Canada. But how can we solve it? Collaboration. I think if we strengthen the collaboration among all the stakeholders that I mentioned, so researchers, and not just academic researchers, there's several industry companies who are doing research as well, associations, consortiums, policymakers, non-for-profits, and industry, and whoever has the big pockets to invest and fund these. If you have more collaboration, and collaboration could be attending meetings like this to understand exactly what we're doing, meetings, events that associations have, or our blockchain technology symposium. We designed it, like we had that in mind, that we need to speak to one another. When we started in 2017, 2016, 2018, we saw it as a gap, we saw it as a weakness. And to this state, we think we need to improve on that. In 2018, in the room, we had several blockchain technology experts. And I jokingly said, if you put 10 of us in a room to define even what is blockchain technology, 30 definitions would come out of the room. And I don't think we have, this is still somewhat true, that we have people who think very practical about it. Some people are very ideal about it. And although things have improved, I'm using that as a point to say that we need more collaboration to understand exactly what's possible and what the needs are, to then put our brains together to move it forward from a hype to reality.
Yeah, David.
Yeah, I quite agree with this comment. So we do need to collaborate. Actually, then in this year, I have traveled a lot. I traveled to Dubai twice in March, and then in the last month, I visited Singapore. I visited France and Paris for the ECC5, and I was also in the Bay Area. And then I do see that a lot of actually developers from the technical side came from Canada. But actually, then we actually from some report or the statistical results, Canadian has the most Web3 developers. But actually, we did not realize that. Why? Because we do not know who are working in the Web3, unless those are some names and in the local, then we know that. But actually, we have a lot of those developers with very good technology background. They are working from home, and this is another thing that I want to echo what's said by Atefeh. So it's like the tax. Okay, the tax. Yes, the income tax in Canada is very high. It's a little bit high for the tax rate, and then but most of those Web3 developers, they are receiving the tokens like the stable coins, the USDT, USDC, or DAI, and then they can easily cash them out in the Canadian from the OTC market. Actually, this is I know this one is being recorded, but I do not want to just keep it private because most of the Web3 developers, they receive token, they can get cash out by OTC market. I think this is somehow we need to let the government think about this. Okay, do you want to just lose all of those tax, or you want to charge a little bit lower tax rate, but they still can get some tax? But anyway, this is the current status of the Web3 in Canada. Okay, we have the best developers of Web3. We have the very good people with the very good background and doing development jobs for different offshore companies. And then we need to collaborate, and then we need to have the regular meetings. And then that's why the Verilog solution, this is the startup funded by me. So we are collaborating with the internship at UBC and also the BC government to try to build a Web3 incubator. And then that's why then we would like to reach out, and we need to collaborate. And also I talked with the new elected mayor of Vancouver, and then I mentioned to him that we shall build Vancouver as the capital city of Web3 in Canada. So anyway, so I think this is the good opportunity for all of us because we are gathering here, and we need to collaborate. Basically, because I have collaborated a bunch of the venture capital, not in Canada, but most of them in Singapore, in the Bay Area, and who are investing in Web3. And then also I collaborated with a bunch of the layer 1, layer 2 protocols, including like the Solana and Hydra, Oasis, ZK Sync, and then Starknet. And then they would like to contribute like the $100K US as the initial fund for the incubator. So why not just collaborate together? And then we have our student resources, and we have our blockchain expertise and sitting here. And then we have our very good developers and contribute to the ecosystem. So yeah, so this is what I want to say. Thank you.
Yeah. So, you know, like Vitalik and CZ Zhao, two giant figures in blockchain space, both are Canadians, but they don't live here.
Yeah,
they're somewhere else. And so I think, you know, that means Canada as a country doesn't do a very good job in keeping talent inside the country, I guess, as Atty and David mentioned. And that's not a problem specific to the blockchain sector. I'm involved in healthcare and biotech, and I can see that in that space, Canadian scientists and researchers have created a lot of amazing technologies. But when it comes to commercialization, you know, we are a bit behind, and this might have something to do with you know, the business atmosphere in the country. And I come from a business school. I did my PhD in business school, and specifically focused on focused on business strategy. And in strategy, you know, there are different genres of strategy research, and there's the economic genre and then the sociological genre. And a lot of the US top schools, they do the economic stuff, you know, competitive strategy and how you position your company in the market, and how you attract, how you manage the stakeholder relationships and this kind of stuff. And but in Canada, you know, a lot of the strategy departments in business schools focus on the sociological approach, you know, things like corporate social responsibility and social enterprise. And so I think That's something that says something about the business atmosphere in this country, and this I think has something to do with the the culture and the social values of this country as well. So yeah, very interesting observation. And Lee, what's your take on this?
Well, I'd love to add on to your call out of culture. And I think of the events I see in our technical communities as we talk about blockchain, Web3, metaverse, or other things. Where do these things get promoted, radiated? Where do we as a culture across, coast to coast to coast, where do we celebrate that? And I've not turned on my news and seen anybody celebrating CZ or Vitalik or talk about these events or really cherish and embrace some of the leadership we have in advancing technologies. And when I think of my own experiences as a Canadian, leaving Canada, working in the Bay Area, yes, of course, money's a draw, taxation's a draw, but also I loved being there. The culture around it and the embracing of things that interested me and that I thought were important and were interesting was all around me. You could not escape it. And if we think about, this emerging world we're in right now, this Web3, metaverse, blockchain powered world, we're introducing new vocabulary, new literacy, new ways of doing business, new technology skills, new ways of building a community. We're almost creating a new digital divide. Mm-hmm. And unless we're creating a culture that really celebrates what's trying to be built, how we're building it, I don't know how we pull people into these amazing educational institutions we have, a country with many freedoms, with safety. Like a reason that I moved back to Canada was to raise my family and to have my kids grow up in Canada. But as a technologist, it has its downsides, and being removed from the energy, from the focus, from celebrating these topics. And I don't know how to flip that bit in Canada yet, where we celebrate more of this. And whether it's seeing the when I think of a newspaper, there's the sports section, there's the finance section, but where's that focus on real technology and the implementation and the skills and celebrating this learning and growth? Until we see that every day and everywhere, it's an uphill battle, and it's going to be tough. And I guess the one other thing I'll add in there is, when I think of my day-to-day work right now, the folks I work with, some are in Canada, but some are south of the border. And the clients we're working with are more often than not south of the border. Some are on this side. And looking at, how do we advance the projects? How do we use blockchain? How do we use various devices, XR, whatever? And they're fun and interesting and they're exciting. And I try to bring that learning back. And I think we also need to celebrate those that may take a step outside of Canada. And then how do we get them to bring the knowledge back and to radiate it out, where there's some amazing experiences out there and an attachment? And how do we pull in that thread a little bit, and the patriotism or the sense of home, and say, hey, come back, do a lecture, or come back and build, or come back and mentor, and embrace the fact that it's often not a one-way flow. And the folks that leave are often going to come back or want to connect and want to support their home. And so how do we clear the lane for them and make it easy to have that impact where they'd probably love it?
Mm-hmm. So I think, based on the comments from the three panelists, I see that collaboration is going to be a great way to improve the Canadian blockchain ecosystem. But collaboration is such a big concept, right? So any ideas or thoughts on how we can collaborate? What are the pathways or strategies for collaboration? Or any kind of infrastructure that we need to foster this kind of collaboration?
May I?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Yeah, so first, I think the collaboration first is from the academic with the industry. So actually, this collaboration is already has been going a long time and in the history for the Web2. So I think that we need to think about how to collaborate is make the collaboration happen in the Web3, like the ZK stuff. Okay, the zero knowledge proof, and then I'm also the researcher of the ZKP and I'm the MPC. And then when I visited the Bay Area, I talked with the Dong Song in UC Berkeley, and also Dan Berney from Stanford, and then they are actually the very top tier professor in the US and in the world, and then they are very actively collaborated with their local Web3 projects. And then for the how to use the cryptography and to reduce the risk of the bridges across different chains, and then how to improve the computational reduce the computational complexity of to approve for the proof of the common reference string, and then to make this kind of the scalable cross-chain payment happens possible. So I think this is a good way, and we can kick off because we are all the have good connections with the university and also the UBC professors. Another collaboration I think is we need to collaborate with government. So it is very important. I think the culture thing is very important, as said by other panelists. While I think the on the very top is actually the policymakers. So we need to incentivize the people and then to think about Web3, and then to talk about the Web3. And then also then Web3 is somehow, to me, the Web2 focuses on the people's daily life. So you know that you can have the food delivered to your door. Okay, you can call the Uber. Okay, you can purchase on the internet. So basically Web2 solves most of the problem of our daily lives. While the Web3, because I'm the researcher in Web3 also, so I think that Web3 focuses on the spiritual need. So we not only just for we not only just want to enjoy this kind of the persistent food, but we have the entertainment on the spiritual need. So just like the Maslow's the need of the pyramid, okay, the pyramid of the need. After we have already satisfied all of the lower level requirement, then we look for some requirement on the higher level, so that the Web3 can give us the ownership of those crypto assets, okay, and we have the DID on the blockchains, okay, and then we talk about the metaverse. Why is metaverse? Because we can achieve something that we cannot able to achieve in the physical world. So in that case, I think we need to have some collaboration, okay, and then talk with the government, and then let the government then have a good policy or friendly policy, and then to the Web3 entrepreneurs. Yeah. Another collaboration that we can think about is that we need to collaborate with the ventures. Actually, yeah. Whenever I visit like the Singapore and Dubai, and then we see a lot of venture capitals, they already have the office there, but we do not have such as the offices in Canada. It's also the kind of result from the policy, the regulation issues, I would say, right? So if we have the good venture capitals, we definitely can attract a lot of developers and startups here. And then definitely there's also a kind of feedback to the researcher in the universities, and also we can also send our students to more startups, and then to do more research about what's the future of the Web3 and the blockchain will look like. So it's actually the win-win collaboration, and then for the venture capitals and with the policymaker and also university.
Yeah. So, in other parts of the world, especially in the US, when you want to do a startup, I think the first way of fundraising you would think about it is go to a VC. But here, probably the first way you would think about it is go to the government, apply for some government grants, so that's a difference. And the benefit of having government grants is that you will still have a lot of control of your company, but without the help of a VC, you would not be able to scale very fast. And in a very fast moving industry like a blockchain, if you don't do things very fast, then you would fall behind. Yeah. Lee and Atty, how do you think that the Canadian blockchain ecosystem could be improved? Sorry.
So a thing that I'll put in there, I'm just a huge fan of experiential learning and trying to find more ways to have people coming together to build, to do, whether hackathons, experiments, willingness to try quick, short ventures, and maybe find some streamlined ways, like if having done startups in various forms, sometimes getting funding from government is just a long, painful road, and we're too busy to pursue. And so, bootstrapping yourself, there was, and I haven't looked at the latest tallies, with a lot of the blockchain ecosystem, some significant treasuries, and I know they've shrunk considerably in the last 6 months, but they had some funding options in there. And I don't know if there's ever been a time where it's been less expensive to build and deploy. Gone are the days where you have to buy all the hardware, and with cloud-based and the elasticity there and the usage models, we can be looking at some dApps and some easier, quicker things. Those things can't be overlooked. And I guess the other thing I'll add in there is it just really comes down to more talent, and also helping folks to understand that it's a mix. Like these startups, these ideas, it's not just a computer scientist. It is, and Atty was talking to it before, there are folks that are going to come at it and think about, well, how does this fit into society? And, the user design and the experience and the business model. And I don't know if we have broad enough coverage across those disciplines to be thinking about how I might fit into this. And when I think about, this convergence, and I'll do my hand wavy definitions, but when I think about Web3 and metaverse, like metaverse is the next generation of the internet. Well, that's Web3 as well, and read, write, own, and the only way we can tell ownership is blockchain. So these things are all coming together. And one of the biggest things for some of these, the building, the consuming, the new business models, community is going to play such a big role. And more often than not, you're not learning about how to build a thriving community as you're learning a new algorithm. They're very different, and a different mindset, and a different personality, and a different perspective and skill. So where's the class that's helping people to thrive in building a Web3 community, and how to engage and how to market it and support it? And by the way, can you do more than just spell Web3, or the idea that a coin can make you rich if you speculate at the time? So that collaboration isn't just between the technologists. We need to go beyond our disciplines, break down the silos, be patient, enable others, and also be open to learn. Like someone who can work a community and get people engaged and get people testing your product and volunteering, that is a huge value add as you look to build out your product. And so, reaching out, crossing the street, hanging out where some other people are, connect with people in the arts communities. There's just such a tapestry of folks that need to be brought together. So when we talk collaboration, it has to be actually outside of this community. This is the easy part, and it's comfortable. Get uncomfortable and get comfortable being uncomfortable, and finding those other allies.
Yeah. Community building is such a huge thing for blockchain ecosystems, and we definitely need to do a better job at that. Yeah, Atty.
Lee said it so well. I don't have much to add. It was the perfect answer. I think among technology professionals, there are more introverts than extroverts, and maybe that's why they were drawn to technology, because traditionally, historically, they've been doing it in silos. And now we need to really break the silo and maybe bridge this gap with enticing some extroverts who are comfortable, bridging and going out and not burning gas while doing so. If you force an introvert to do that, it's really burning gas. As I say that as an introvert myself. We have to learn to but it just comes so naturally to extroverts, right? So I think we need to think creatively and maybe we can teach the technology to someone who is good at not superficial sales type of pitch, but at really bridging and going outside the box of technology. I mean, of course, even within technology, we have extroverts, so maybe we can use them to carry the flag and go out. But definitely, everything that Lee said, 100% agree. I think we need to think about this collaboration as more than just collaborating between people who have the same common language or goal or purpose to take this to its fullest potential, right? So as an academic, I felt like I was doing another PhD learning user adoption methodologies in IS, information system. I got a PhD in math, computer science, cryptography, but I'm teaching in a business school. And it was really getting another PhD to learn all of this, new research methodologies, and the way you need to motivate the problem is very different. So I can speak of my personal experience that it was a humbling experience, and I learned a lot going from one discipline to the, and I'm just one person, one person, right? But if we do this in masses, if people are open to retrain the way they think about things, we can achieve wonders. Just tapping into that opportunity that if technology inventors, developers, professionals would understand what is going on in the brain of a end user on the societal side, or even decision maker, like this C-suite level is deciding whether to purchase this tool or not. They're not excited about the fancy technology that you're making. You need to really speak to their needs, right? But a lot of technology providers are not trained in universities to think like that. They get that training in the real world. So maybe this is note to myself. We need to teach in universities or in a different way, not to put them in those silos, traditional disciplinary silos. My mentor, Professor Victoria Lemieux from UBC has written a book about this. So I think within blockchain technology is a very good test bed for us to elevate ourselves from the traditional walls or parameters of boundaries of disciplines, and then see what we can achieve.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so on that note, I want to, Lee.
I just want to add one more thing where, as we look at building products and capabilities, there's also some groups. I know there's one in Calgary, and I think it's in multiple cities, a group called Inclusity. And their whole focus is bringing a range of diverse people from your community to help you test your product. And just bringing different perspectives and recognizing the end of the day, whatever we build is going to be used by a range of people with different backgrounds and a different view on the technology, and leveraging some of those community groups could also expand our views on who we're building for, how we communicate with them, the benefits we're bringing, the use cases that were mentioned earlier, what matters to people versus, hey, this was an interesting problem, I think, right? Like at the end of the day, your community, your users, and the people you reach out to are likely different than yourself. And so finding ways to engage with that broader, different audience is going to be important.
Yeah. So on that note, I want to quickly mention that the philosophy of blockchain UBC, the research cluster I work at, is multidisciplinarity. So we conceptualize blockchain as a technical, social, and informational system. And because it's a 3-layer system, we need experts and professionals from all areas to build this system. And we are trying to embed this philosophy in our education. So every year in the summer, we host a Blockchain Summer Institute, and where we teach this really a model and teach students some of the technical fundamentals of blockchain, but also the business considerations, the informational considerations that 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 are very important for building a blockchain solution. Yeah, so hopefully, these kind of initiatives would help educate the next generation of blockchain talent for Canada, and so that we can, have a better ecosystem in the next decade. And my last question for all the panelists is there any, particular organization or company or startup or user case in the Canadian blockchain ecosystem that we should pay attention to? Any kind of rising star or any interesting user case or company that you want to mention?
Yeah, I think that for this part, I can jump first. So first, I would like to introduce the Verilog solutions. This is the Web3 security firm, and we provide the security checking, like the smart contract checking, and we guarantee that the smart contract is bug-free, it will not be hacked. So in the previous year, then we have the 20 or 30 projects and online, and then the total TVL, and we have protected is more than $10 billion. And then we definitely collaborated with a lot of the venture capitals and the top tier projects like the StepN, Bendao, Gnosis, and also we have audited a bunch of the layer 1 protocols. And then also, then we are collaborating with some government bureaus and for the Web3 incubator in Canada. And then we would like to continue serving this ecosystem. And then if you have any or the we can also have a lot of discussions and the Twitter space. Okay, and then you can follow us, and then we can discuss.
Yeah, and I think auditing service is probably going to be a pretty good business model for a lot of Canadian blockchain enthusiasts, because as we just mentioned, Canada has a lot of blockchain talents, right? Talented people, developers, engineers, and if you do auditing, right? I think what it takes is the solid knowledge about the code.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? So that really kind of leverages our advantage. Yeah.
Right, because the security is a very important issue in Web3. Okay, so no matter which this is the layer 1 solution or layer 2, no matter it's a DeFi or the GameFi or social finance to be appear in the future. So the security is always a very important issue and we need to consider in the ecosystem. So that's what we do in Verilog solutions.
Thank you. Yeah, great. Lee and Atty.
I don't know if I'll call out, I'll call out a couple organizations. So one, the Blockchain Consortium, just as please engage, whether through our panels or volunteering or summits, etc. We're nice. Come hang out, come join in. I was talking to some folks a little while back, and they're saying, if you were to guess what's the #1 industry in Canada that's really advancing rapidly from a digital transformation point of view, what industry would you pick? And people throw out a bunch. And I was quiet because I knew the answer, and the answer was mining. And, you kind of looking at really, and then, you start to hear about the work being done with MLAI and IoT and some AR, VR, and now industrial metaverse. And I think, if we take a step back and think about where do we live, how does a lot of wealth in Canada get generated? It's from some of our natural resources. And so, industrial metaverse would be a thing maybe to take a look at if you're not already. And while it's not quite there, there's a great video that Unity put out talking about the industrial metaverse with the Vancouver airport. So I'll stay close to home. And they walk through, they do some demos, they did a lot of data capture, that 3D data set. It's not blockchain yet, but you start to hear some real stories in terms of the value it's given to folks and the insights around how they operate, a substantial operation there, between the commercial side, the consumer side, just the safety side from so many dimensions. And I think we might overlook from time to time, where some of Canada's strengths are and where opportunities are to bring technology and really advance, where people go, you mean the business I do day in, day out, you could help? Versus perhaps, chasing some new consumer side. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but, to find an ear that's interested in what you're doing, don't overlook some of our natural resources. And, industrial metaverse sounds maybe not as sexy as some other things, but it could be some really cool projects. So I'd highlight that.
Interesting. And Atty.
So keeping up with the trend, please join us for Blockchain Technology Symposium 2023. It's going to happen in Concordia University, chaired by Jeremy Clark, co-chaired by myself. We're going to send out more details in the new year, obviously. I'd like to bring up two sectors, so not going to name any companies or organizations, but use cases or areas. So I think we still have not solved the identity problem. And identity is really core for all of these great ideas to, take off, really take off, right? I mean, we have some bandage solutions, and then, of course, I'm not talking about public blockchain. I'm talking about, when organizations want to have the assurance of who they're actually transacting with. So the solution has been, okay, we're not going to open it up. We're going to rely on our own identity, mechanisms, and then guard ourselves. Basically, we need to really get out of that and work on solving the identity. And there are several great initiatives, companies, associations, standardization initiatives. This is an area to watch for it to actually come to something that is widespread adoption. So I think this is identity is not a sexy problem, but this is critical, and we need to pay attention to it for all the sexy use cases, to get to where we want. And another use case I think we need to watch is supply chain, because supply chain has all the signature trends of what a use case that you really want in blockchain. It's really distributed. It's a long-lasting transaction. It has infinite as well as good traveling. Needs to be and just being right. Did I? Can you hear me?
It seems that you are stuck a little bit.
I can hear you.
It's really laggy.
Okay, I can hear you. Okay.
Okay, now it's good.
Okay, I turned off my camera to help. I can hear and see you well. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Okay, so just to wrap up, I think that I had a drop, a temporary drop. So hopefully you can see and hear me now. I just wrap up. I want to make a case for supply chain, and not just supply chain of goods, but also supply chain of green energy, which is something that it has a lot of Canadian hallmarks as well. That's it for me.
Yeah, exactly, especially in British Columbia. Yeah. Okay, so on that note, I would like to thank all the panelists again for their effort, for their engagement, and also thank you everyone here for listening. And I wish you a wonderful weekend. Thank you.
Thank you.